the so-called Latin tribes, you know, so-called Indian tribes, you know, and many other different things that they found on this side of the world that gives credence that they're Israelites. Historical books like this that are bringing out information of things that the so-called Europeans, the Edomites, have encountered when they came over here and saw and mixed among the Israelites that were here. So it says, and the earth helped the woman, and the earth opened her mouth and swallowed up the flood which the dragon cast out of his mouth. And that's why we're reading this information, to show you how the Most High fulfilled the prophecy of the earth helping the woman by swallowing the flood that the dragon cast out against her. So there, brother.
Now here, it says here, page 127. It says Mexican mythology. But it was reserved for Viscount Kingsborough.
That's him.
Who gathered all the testimonies into a single volume to become the real propounder of the theory that would trace to a Semitic source those Indians' customs and traditions.
Yeah, that's called Antiquities of Mexico. That's what he labeled that. I believe it was an 8-volume book.
Yep.
Okay.
Thus he writes, it is impossible on reading what Mexican mythology records of the war in heaven and of the fall of Zoltemoc, which that's, I believe, their version of Satan. That's how the Mexican mythology, excuse me, and the other rebellious spirits of the creation of light by the word of Tonacaticulti, and of the division of the waters of the sin. It says this word I really can't pronounce it. Yatztalaku Hukui.
Just do the best you can.
And his blindness. It said Yatztalaku Hukui, and his blindness.
That sound right to me.
And nakedness of the temptation of Suchiquikal, and her disobedience in gathering roses from a tree, and of the consequent misery and disgrace of herself and all her posterity. Not to recognize scriptural analogies, but the Mexican tradition of the deluge, which is the flood, is that which bears unequivocal marks of having been derived from a Hebrew source. The Viscount then develops the Mexican idea of the deluge and its subsequent events, such as the Tower of Babel and the dispersion of nations, in parallel with the Bible story.
Yeah, so how the hell did they know about that stuff? Because they were on that side of the world.
Right.
They were in Israel, in Samaria.
They were once reading the Torah.
Right, they were once reading the Torah. They was once keeping the Passover. You know, they were once wearing the fringes and the borders of blue and the garments and the breeches, you know, and coming before the public assembly of the priests when Ezra was reading or should I say, you know, going back, Ezra was reading the books of the law in front of the Israelites at that time. But then when they were around, even going before that, during the time of Moses and Aaron and them, they was being read the law back then. You know, so all that stuff goes back to them.
Yeah, because remember when it tells you what's it, that 2 Kings, when it says they were gonna leave Assyria to go to a land.
It's in Ezra's.
Oh, that's in Ezra's. And as a matter of fact, I think I got it.
Yeah, bring it out.
And it tells you that the reason why they're going to go there, which I'm going to read it, was to keep the laws. So now, you assholes, where was that place at then? Where did they go at this point?
And I bet you, you know, I bet you that when the Spaniards came over here, and mainly the Spaniards, because they're the ones that first had contact with our people here, I bet you when they first came over here, they probably found books of the law here. Actual books of the law, and when they saw it, they was amazed and they burned them, because a lot of those records they burned. So when they saw them with the books of the Torah, with not books, with the scrolls, they burnt them things, because they knew. Said, wait a minute, how the hell did these people get these scrolls? Where did they come from?
Right.
You know.
Well, and they knew though.
Yeah.
And a lot of them, a lot of them knew.
Yep, that's right.
They were briefed. They knew where they was going. They knew what they were going to encounter. They didn't know probably what state they were going to be in or whatever, because it's been some years or whatever since people had contact with them. Only people that had recorded contact with them at that time was like the Vikings and maybe certain like Hamites that were coming back and forth still trading, right? But now this is the book of 2nd Ezra, chapter 13. I started 39. It says, and whereas thou sawest that he gathered another peaceable multitude unto him, those are the 10 tribes. And see, and again, that's why they had to get the Apocrypha from out of the Bible.
Right.
This section, they had to take this section out because this is going into the history, just like we read it in these books.
This is going into deep history.
Deep history, breaking it down, making it crystal clear, as Elder Ariel used to say.
Yep.
All right. Now it says, verse 40. Those are the 10 tribes which were carried away prisoners out of their own land in the time of Hosea the king, which that links right back up with 2 Kings, the 17th chapter. It says, whom Salmanazar, the king of Assyria, led away captive, and he carried them over the waters, and so came they into another land, which was what? The land of Assyria.
Right.
Were pretty much, they were put in slavery.
Right.
And they knew why they were in slavery, because they were transgressing the laws and commandments of the Most High.
No, go ahead, brother. There's one more point I want to, when you get, there's a point there I want to address once you get to it.
Come. So it says, but they took this counsel among themselves, that they would leave the multitude of the heathen, which were the Assyrians they were in captivity under.
Right.
It says, and go forth into a further country where never mankind dwelt.
That's right.
That's the key. Where never mankind dwelt.
Right.
Which is over here in America, which was known as the land of Canaan, or where you get Canaan from.
Yep.
Which means the unknown.
Right.
Yep. That's why Canada was Canaan Da.
Right.
The fourth Canaan.
Right.
Because Da is a fourth letter in the Hebrew alphabet. So Canaan is Canaan Da, or the fourth Canaan. So all this land was pretty much known as Canaan because one of the terminologies or definitions of the word Canaan was unknown. You know, you had lowland and then you had unknown. So this was like an unknown land at the time.
Yep.
You know, so we're gonna keep it rolling. The battery's probably about to die in another 15 minutes or so. We're gonna keep it rolling, you know, as long as we can. If it cuts off, it cuts off. So go ahead, brother.
Come. It says that they might there keep their statutes, which they never kept in their own land.
So now if they're going to this land where never mankind dwelt, to keep the statutes that they never kept in their own land, how are they going to know of the statutes? They're going to bring books of the law. They're going to bring scrolls, should I say, of the law.
That's right.
Over here to this side of the world. So when the Spaniards came here, because it tells you when you read the history that they burnt a lot of their books and a lot of their history, that's why there was not much that was left. So some of the accounts that Viscount, what was his name, Viscount Kingsborough,
Viscount Kingsborough,
that he wrote down was accounts that the so-called Spaniards had wrote down concerning these people here. You know, going back to James Adair, James Adair. I'm sorry, not John Adair. James Adair, and other Spaniards and different sources of different so-called European or Edomite sources, and he put them all down. Why? So because they burnt all the records. So it's very possible. Well, no, they did bring the books of the law over here.
Yeah.
To keep it. You know, because one of the customs of the law was what? Every Sabbath you had to read the Torah.
Right.
To the people. You know, and make them understand it. So if they were coming to keep those laws, they brought them over here. They brought them over here.
And the proof of that is when they went down to Mexico and really different parts.
Yep.
They seen them
Peru.
I don't know, Española.
Yep.
Certain parts they seen them rehearsing the law, the Sabbath service.
Yep.
They were reading out of the Torah. They were saying the chant, the Shema Yasha Allah.
Yep. The sanctuary, the Holy of Holies.
Holy of Holy.
They had all of that, but the fucking Spaniards burnt it up.
Yep.
They're the ones that burnt it up. Go ahead.
Right. It says that they might there keep their statutes, which they never kept in their own land.
Right.
It says, and they entered into the Euphrates by the narrow passage of the river, for the Most High then showed signs for them, and held still the flood till they were passed over.
Right.
That's right. Because those waters are rough and treacherous.
That's right.
And the Most High held back the storms, so that way they were able to pass over. And as a matter of fact, the way that they came, like we said in the last video, they came under the Horn of Africa.
Yep.
So